Hi, this is Lives Touched by Pets, a show for those who love and are loved by pets. I'm your host, Lisa DeSatnik, a certified trainer with so much potential in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am so glad that you're here. Welcome. Are you a parent of a baby or toddler and a dog? This episode is for you. In my last episode, I spoke with my own teacher and mentor, Jennifer Shryock. She's owner and founder of Family Paws. We talked about preparing for life with a baby and a dog. I encourage you to go back and listen to that if you are an expecting parent. This time, Jen and I talk about parenting a toddler and a dog together, how to plan for safety, minimizing stress, and getting everyone's needs met. That can be a big challenge. I hope that this parenting discussion about families with a toddler and dog will be helpful for you. Welcome back. So last time we talked about babies and getting ready for having a baby, what's involved in that. Now you've got a baby, and that baby's getting older by the minute. So now we're going to delve into some things that could be coming up and to prepare for as your baby grows. Welcome back, Jen. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Talk to us about the difference between an infant and a toddler.
There's so many changes that are happening. It's just a wild time. So, yeah, you have an infant who, goes from cradle hold, being in the crook of someone's arm, to being tucked up on the shoulder, to now facing outward. And that can be really alarming to dogs because now they have these big eyes that are looking at them and they don't know necessarily what to make of that. So there's those things. You begin to have grabbing hands. And so normal milestones, normal abilities for a child, but not appreciated around dogs. So that can be tricky, so we want to be able to plan for those things ahead of time and think about it. Think about how your dog is going to respond to this, because before you know it, it'll be there.
Yeah. No longer can you just use leashes and tethers as management because kids can walk right into spaces. Dogs can walk right into spaces. Maybe the baby has a toy that's of interest to the dog. Maybe the dog has a bone or a chew toy and the baby's interested in that. So we need to look at management a little different.
Yeah, we need to look at management differently. So if tethering, so what I mean by tethering is using a leash, like a 6-foot leash or something secured, bolted to the wall in the first 3 months, if that was being used, which is really, really helpful, really common, and can be an excellent form of management in the first 3 months. If that was being used, then we definitely want to discontinue that because now we have a baby that's able to crawl and move, and that can be confining and extremely dangerous. So it's time for management change. So a lot of times people are getting ready to childproof their home, and it's time to childproof their home, thinking about the dog, thinking about where the dog's going to be, where are the food bowls, where is their crate, where the crate might have been in the living room. While the living room may not be a great place if the baby's going to be active in the living room and the dog feels confined in the crate. So we might have to look at a different place. All these places and all these changes require a little bit of preparation and a little bit of planning ahead so that, it's not a massive change over so quickly for the dog, but that it comes gradual. And then we also have bedtime changes. So, for the first 6 months, it's recommended that newborns are sleeping in the parents' room, but then you might have some crib changes and things like that. There's lots of changes that take place in that first year.
Absolutely. It can be unnerving for the dog. He's just gotten used to one thing and now a whole nother thing is happening.
Yes.
So, and another thing too we talk about is the fact that we've got to be aware that even though an infant is very young, they're watching everything that you do. And so, just how you model things?
I think it's pretty cool. Babies are just sponges. They just are observing everything. So we have an opportunity to model for them what it is we want them to do around dogs. So, for example, if you've been a hugger of your dog, you might want to rethink that in front of your child, because that's what your child will see and what they will do. If you feed your dog at the couch or something, granted, your child will pick up on that too. There's lots of things, it's time to think about. I say during pregnancy, it's time to think about some of the things that you can discuss as a family are things that are either no longer going to be safe or are going to be inconvenient once a baby is there with a dog. And so these are things that you'll want to talk about and make new adjustments for. And the earlier you can make the adjustments, the better, because it takes our dogs some time to adjust. And if the adjustments happen too quickly, so for example, if we've decided that the baby's going to sleep in the bedroom, in the parents' room for the first 6 months, then we need to have a plan. We need to have a plan for where is the dog going to sleep? Where do they not have access to that baby under any circumstance? And, we need to have plans. And same with if we're going to change where the crate is. And now we're going to introduce a high chair. Things like that. So all these new equipment, we've got swings and jumpers and all these things that are new to the dog's home and new to their sensory intake. It can really be an interesting time. So for example, if a family has a house that has hardwood floors and they bring in an exerciser or an exerciser type piece of equipment, and you put that on the floor, that could be devastating to a dog, especially if they've got high ceiling and it's rattling and it's making noise. And, so you want to be thinking about these things. Vibrational sounds that are on some of these toys can really be irritable to dogs. So we want to be thinking about all those types of things and how it might impact the family dog.
At best, maybe a dog's just curious, but he could definitely have bigger feelings and emotions about that. So being able to plan ahead is terrific. So let's, on that note, when we talk about tolerance, people even seek out breeds that they think are more tolerant breeds. But really, when we're talking about that, what we're asking for is for dogs kind of to take things that we wouldn't do to a human child. We really need to be careful about that, because that in and of itself means that we're setting the dog up for a stressful situation, and we're asking the dog to just kind of put up with having things done to it and in proximity of it and just taking it. And everyone is going to have a breaking point, no matter who it is. I'm very calm, but I have a breaking point at some.
I remember being at a restaurant, and this is embarrassing to say, but I was at a restaurant. I traveled all day, and I was so hungry. They brought chips and dip or cheese dip, and they were filling up the cheese dip, but they went to take my chips too, and I grabbed it. It's like, you're not taking that. No, but tolerance is a funny thing, because it's going to vary depending on the day, the mood, how a dog's feeling. Are they hungry? Are they tired? Are they, our dogs aren't getting enough rest. That's a common thing, and so it's one of those things that we want to be thinking about. And so when I get a phone call that's, parents will say, we did A, B, and C. So we pulled their ears and we yanked their tail and we've played with their food and we did all these things to prepare for a baby. And I say, why? But that is what we used to give advice to do, we used to give that advice with the idea that we are somehow getting the dog used to or ready for a child to do these things. And I'm more of the mindset that we need to be teaching our children and watching not putting our children in the roles that they shouldn't be in. So for example, they should not be playing with a food bowl. They should not be putting their hands in the food bowl. It's fine if we want to have a child have a structured expectation, have it where it's predictable that there's a food bowl feeding activity routine. Now that's okay, where there's a beginning and an end to it. And the dog knows, okay, kiddo stands on this stool, I sit here, food goes down, and then I get it. Like, it has to be a beginning and an end. There has to be structure to it. Structure for predictability for the child and the dog. Without the predictability, you run into problems.
I love that predictability factor, because that helps all of us to feel safe. When we can predict in a certain situation, this is going to happen, we feel safer, and all of us do. And so your kiddo's going to feel that way, you're going to feel that way, and your dog's going to feel that way.
Yeah, they know what to do. So if every night, your routine is, we have a stool, and you get up on that stool, and mom or the parent puts the food in the bowl, and then the child puts the bowl on the floor, and the dog sits in their spot, and then the child gets back on the stool, and then the parent releases the dog. That's a predictable pattern that's going to happen each evening. And so everybody gets used to it. It's not, I'm going to go and put my hands in your bowl. It's, I put the bowl down, I get back on the stool, and look, now you get to get your food. And you can even include kids with the hand gesture that says all done or free, or, I like to do that as they get older. I like to include them with hand gestures. I use mouse pads. I use different things to have kids stand on. You think about preschool that I used to teach. I taught toddlers, a toddler class, and, they had chairs to sit on, or they had rugs to sit on. And that was their place. And they easily know, I go to this spot and here's what's going to happen. We are going to have circle time, and this is the manners for circle time. And they know that. And so we can easily teach us, several different things that we can do with the dog, and expect them to have the same kind of control and predictability so that it's safe for everybody.
Yeah. Another thing when we talk about that, and this is something, because I do kids classes too on how to be a good dog friend for 6 and older. But, you run into a lot parents with young kids, 3 and 4, and they put a lot of weight on teaching the kids, which is really, well, my child should know how to do this. Or let's talk about that, because I think that's really important for parents to hear.
Right. I tell them to be gentle. And when grabbing is a milestone, and it's one of those things that a child is going to do. So predictability is not something children are very good at. It takes time. And, I would say around that 3 to 4 age range is when, you have that more predictable walk, which helps our dogs settle in a little bit. But kids don't understand enough to be consistent. So they can repeat back everything you've said, and they can even model and demonstrate everything you said. But to expect that they're going to do it when you're not in the room, or expect that they're going to do it every single time, is just not appropriate or something that we can expect with young children. It's just not. So touch the dog gently. Well, maybe it's a rough day. Maybe it's not a gentle touching day. And if that happens, then maybe the dog starts to associate rough touch with that child, maybe not the other children, but maybe that child. I've seen that happen. So we have to be really careful.
Right, where we put the weight. So we come back to that whole thing about management. The importance of management, how very, very important that is to families.
Yeah, it's really important. I look at it all the time now with my 2 dogs, and, they have times that I can tell that they're reaching their peak, kind of like toddlers. Toddlers reach that peak time, and remembering that your dogs get tired. This is key for parents. Remember that your dogs get tired, they get whiny, they get fussy too at the end of the day. So just making it like 7 o'clock is your dog's bedtime, and, and you have a wind down time so that your dog goes to bed or 6 o'clock, your dog goes to bed when you're in that heated time of getting your children ready for bed, and then you take your dog out later. You know what I mean? But you just have like a period of time that your dog is not part of that chaotic dinner and homework and getting ready for the next day. That's when problems really happen. And so I like to eliminate the dog from that situation by giving them a food dispensing toy, or, let them have their meal in some kind of food dispensing toy or something like that. But remembering that our dogs need a break too. They need a break, and they need good, solid sleep. So not just sleep in the crate where they're watching everything, quiet sleep.
Yeah. And especially, if there's a lot of stress, we need to give them that break. Sometimes even like a food scatter in the grass.
Yes.
So they're out of the house and they're not dealing
Yes.
with these kinds of things, because parents are going to be stressed too. And they're just thinking about all kinds of different things, and they're not thinking about the management piece too. And then it could be a time where the child is cranky. And so coming up with solutions where the dog, can be out of the way, but making sure that those dogs' needs are being met is super important too.
And that's where having a Family Paws educator come in and talk about it, I think, is really helpful. We can talk about things that they can do and set up so that it can be more comfortable and convenient for everybody.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We think about if you were taking your child to a grocery store, you wouldn't take your child to a grocery store when he's tired and exhausted and starving and
Probably not
asking for a temper tantrum. So we just don't know, but we really need to be aware that just like the young toddlers need breaks and naps, so too do our dogs. So that's really important.
And they start acting out. At least I notice this. They start acting out. They might get mouthy. They might get barky. They might get a little more playful. They start acting like a toddler. I always say when I'm fed up, when I'm reaching my limit and I'm just about fed up with the dog, that's usually about the time that they've had enough and they need a break.
We need to think about that too, because even as adults, it's exhausting being with a baby or an infant because you're always on. And
Yes.
Similarly, when you've got a puppy, you are always on. But, when our dogs are needing to go through that day in and day out for all of that time, that's a lot. Just like it's stressful for parents, it is stressful for the dog. So we just need to be really, really aware of all that. Well, this has been really, I think, a lot of good information here. Is there any kind of parting message that you would give to parents when it comes to setting everything up for success?
Please just remember to listen, follow your dog's lead, and pay attention to what they're communicating as far as comfort and discomfort, and continue to learn what they're communicating, because you can't learn enough about dog-aware skills. You just can't. It's constant. I mean, I have a 14-year-old and I have, my 2 dogs, and we're constantly learning, and she has friends come over and things like that. You just can't. You never stop learning about dogs. And I encourage people to continue to learn about their body language and how they're communicating. It's critical. It's critical.
Well, Jen, thanks. It's been really wonderful to have this conversation with you. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people that are going to find some useful information in our conversations. And for more information, they can visit the website.
They can come to familypaws.com or visit us over on Instagram at Family Paws Official.
And we're going to have a link in the show notes too.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to my podcast. Come back often and tell your friends. If I can be of any help to you and your pet, please reach out to me via my website, www.somuchpotential.com. And for a lot more information, fun, and videos, please follow me, So Much Potential, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. See you soon.